Welcome to GRE Snacks, snackable episodes about the GRE exam and graduate school admissions. I'm Tyler, the founder of Achievable, and we have an affordable GRE course that includes everything you need to ace your GRE. Full textbook, videos on key topics, tons of questions backed by our memory-enhancing algorithm, a built-in study planner and essay grader, and full-length practice exams. You can try it for free by going to achievable.me, and if you like it, use the code podcast to get 10% off at checkout. Now, let's get started. Today, we have Mateo Chang with us. And Mateo, if you could just give a quick 1-minute background on yourself, that would be great.
Hey, Tyler. Yeah, great to be back on. Thanks for having me again. Hi, listeners. My name is Mateo Chang. I am an MBA interview prep coach and also an admissions consultant. So basically, I just help people get into their programs of their dreams, and we walk through the entire process. It's not easy, but it's definitely a gratifying process once you've made it in there. So yeah, just very excited to be here. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So today is going to be talking about what you should know before you research MBA programs. I am curious kind of where you start here, right? I've heard a lot of different advice on this topic, and I'm curious kind of what's the big thing that you think is the thing everyone's getting wrong or maybe should know but doesn't know when they're about to start researching MBA programs.
Yeah, okay. So everything you need to know. I'd say, first of all, one of the great places to really start is to just get a general idea by going into the websites of the schools that you have, of your choice. Next step, make a list of them. A couple of reasons why you think that's a great school. I wouldn't get too deep into like how competitive it is or how easy or hard it is to get in there. Not just yet. The idea here is to really just get familiarized with what each school has to offer you. Whether it's depending on the criteria that you want. Some students actually want rankings, or they want to know, how much their median salary post MBA is going to increase. So everyone has different criteria that they use when they're seeking out MBAs. I wouldn't go that specific just yet. Just get a general idea. And then what I usually tell students is try to reach out to some of the alumni from some of those schools. Have a quick chat with them, just kind of see what really made them choose that school, whether it was an Ivy League or Yale or NYU Stern, Kellogg, Berkeley. So many schools out there, so many great programs, whether in the US or in Europe, but try to reach out and talk to them. And you'll start to get to notice, like, okay, there's a pattern here. Most of the people I've spoken with who have graduated from a Chicago Booth MBA kind of talk about this. Is this something right for me? And then you start narrowing down that list. Once you've done that, then yeah, go check on the rankings, go check on the competitiveness, the requirements. One of the greatest, I think a great website that you can actually check out too is GMAT Club, which is kind of the kind of go-to place for MBA stuff. And I'm just suggesting this one mainly because it's kind of more of a community-based website where you kind of get different opinions from many different people from all over the world, rather than like an admissions consulting website where you get more of a specific point of view. And again, just really get to know the schools until you figured out, let's say, your top 5. And then you have to get into when you get into the requirements, you'll notice that you have proficiency tests. And those are the first things I would tackle, are the proficiency tests, and then for the proficiency test, there's nothing else that I can say except I'd go to achievable.me because, hey, I actually had a question, man, the last time we were talking, and I spoke about this, but I didn't really ask you the question. I noticed that you have several different tests on that website. I'm flipping it on you, the interview now. I'm wondering, are you ever going to put in like the TOEFL and the GMAT tests and stuff? Is that like in the pipeline or not at all?
GMAT, yes, for sure, because we have the GRE and we're working on the GMAT. TOEFL is not yet. We could do it. There's just a lot of other options out there, so we haven't done it yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just asking because, even international, I mean, TOEFL is more for international students, but international students are always looking
Mhm.
towards like good GMAT programs for, mock tests and practice and really learning. But
Right.
yeah, and it's even better if you have it all in one place, which is kind of why my curiosity, because this is something I can also suggest to my students.
Yeah, well, we're working on that. But yeah, in general, I mean, I think you got to nail your test scores, right? And you've got to know. I think at a bare minimum, right, to kind of go back to when researching for MBA programs, you should know at least enough about where your test score is going to be that you can rule out some schools potentially, right?
Yeah.
I think like taking an official practice test, not a third party, an official practice test, can give you a decent idea of what your score could be, with 3 years, 4 months of prep.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree in terms of, taking the official test actually gives you a starting point. And then from there, you have a better idea of how much you need to improve. And coming back to, the research part, that's actually a crucial moment where that ends up eliminating maybe some of the schools in your top 5 list. If it's really, or it might even help you figure out, all right, so this is my range. This is what's, achievable. Let's focus on these schools, whether it's, whether regardless of their ranking. So then you just narrowing.
Right.
Yeah. Once you've narrowed it down, then I'd say it's a good time to kind of, as you're studying and practicing for the proficiency tests, then kind of getting into the community side of the schools, check out the events. Almost every school has, program events across the world. Actually, you have international events, you have national events that you can you can go there, meet people who are also interested, meeting the people who are there promoting the schools, and really go prepared with questions that are relevant to your needs. So taking the time to sit down, really figuring out how the school will help you achieve your future goals will later in turn pay big dividends on how you're able to sell this desire to be a part of this MBA during your MBA interview. So it's basically you're investing in your interview answers right at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. And I also think that, it just kind of is a good idea anyway to ensure alignment that you're going to be able to speak to throughout the application process too, right? And your essays and everything else. I mean, that's why I really liked your suggestion of talking to alumni, is because you got to figure out if you're going to like the people there. And also, at the end of the day, a place where you really like the people is probably going to be easier to get into in a way because they're going to feel it, reciprocity, feel it the same way about you. So then, other than, the things that we've already covered, kind of what are the other things that you want to make sure people are researching when they're starting their MBA list?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said. I think one of the key points is really getting a sense of the people at the school. I mean, it's a big commitment. If you're doing an MBA program, that's a 2-year program, especially if you're doing a full on-campus one, and you're going to be spending 2 years with that person. If you put that into dating terms, you're in a 2-year relationship basically. And if you don't like the people there, it's like if you don't like the person you're dating, but you're stuck with that person for 2 years, but you're also paying for that, you're going to have a tough time. So, I mean, I'd say a good part of your research is really figuring out, if you like the people there, if that's the place that, if that's kind of like your thing, if that's your, in Portuguese, we say if it's your praia, right? If that's the beach you like to go to, if that's your scene, right? I think that's the US term, is if that's your scene. That really helps. And it really eliminates a lot of headache later along the application process. Then also during your research, it's one of the things is figuring out the impact that that school has had on on the students, on the alumni. And one of the best ways to do that also is to see how active the clubs in your region are. So most schools have regional clubs, whether it's LATAM Club, Asia Club, the US Club, or Women's in Business Club, for example. A lot of schools have Women's in Business Club. And if you're looking into, it's kind of like shopping, right? You're looking into investing into a 2-year program where it's, top 25 schools. They're not going to be cheap. You're putting in money, investing your time. You really want to know if this is a lifelong return, and it should be, right? It's not just an immediate salary bump once you've graduated. It's for the rest of your life. And if that's true, then we also need to know how active that school is within like the clubs afterwards. So reach out to those clubs. Try to speak with like the president or active members of the Women's Business Club. Sit down with them. Most of the times, some of the like cool schools, let's call them cool schools, they'll actually invite you to one of their events. And those are the events. Right. Yeah, those are the events that really you just get a real good sense of the culture and the community there. You sit down with other women who are really doing, having this incredible impact in their business and in their careers, and you're watching them, and basically they serve as an inspiration to you as well, and you get to learn so much about how much the school has changed their lives, how much they continue to develop and evolve, and yeah, I mean it's a great way to really understand the insides of a school.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of going to events because you also get to see what everybody kind of is like interacting with each other. And you also get a sense for sort of what the vibe of school events are, right? Because at the end of the day, an MBA program is probably a lot of events. You're going to be doing a lot of networking or whatever. And so is it a place where people are drinking a lot? Is it a place where people are going really in depth on, what like their work, or are they kind of more casual and talking about their personal lives? You can get a little bit of a, for lack of a better term, vibe check out of out of these more than you would get out of an individual one-on-one interview, I feel like.
Yes, totally agree. I mean, a lot of them have social events, but a lot of them also have just very, in-depth events where they'll invite speakers from the industry or from banking, and they'll have these sessions where they learn from other experts and professionals, and this is a great way to integrate yourself already into the school even before applying to it. Other schools, some schools like Duke, for example, if you go to their events at Duke is one of the MBA programs where like they have this very passive forward, very community focused culture. Many of their alumni have been hired by somebody who's either a Duke alumnus or a Duke referred company. So it's like you'll get it's basically guaranteed you're going to get a job afterwards in whatever it is you want to do, because somebody from Duke is going to help you get that. It's not just the Career Services Center. It's the Career Services Center and the alumni who are going to help you get into that role. And it's just incredible.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing about USC also.
USC. Yeah.
Yeah. The Trojans. Apparently they hire a lot of other Trojans.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are things that they'll tell you. They'll probably maybe not put it on the website, but they'll definitely tell you when you talk to them.
Yep.
And yeah, that's a good little perk if you can find it.
Yeah. And the only way to find it is really, reaching out and trying to talk to them. And you'll even see like some schools, you're going to try to reach out to them and and they're just either too busy or they're not able to. And then you'll get a sense of like, all right, sure, maybe they're, doing some incredible things at their work, but if they don't have the time to kind of speak with the prospect student, then how are they going to, how is their alumni network afterwards? How close are they? That's another question that might come up during your application process that might make you reconsider that school. So again, it's just reaching out, getting to know as many people as possible. And that takes time. I mean, it takes time and commitment. You have your I think you end up having to sacrifice your own social life to start building your future social life. It's kind of the way I usually put it. It's like the friends you have today and the commitments, you're gonna end up sacrificing that. But it's for a good cause, because the friends that you're gonna make during your MBA program, I mean, that's gonna really dictate a lot about the success you'll have in the future. I mean, we are the sum of the 5 people we hang out with the most, and it's one of those things that's it's a bigger decision than most think. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to do a program, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Right. No, that I was agreeing with you. Well, so then anything else on that you want to share as far as like things you advise people to do when they're looking to start building their list?
As you're building your list, well, it might be also important. Okay, so a lot of times the schools that you'll have a greater chance, let's say, to get into is if you have a direct professional relationship with an alumnus of that school that you're applying to. What does that mean? But in our other interview, we talked about why this school, there's the 4 C's, right? The culture, classes, clubs, and contributions. And in the culture, we talk about how you fit with the school. And in that answer itself, if you have a leader or a manager who you reported directly to, who's an alumnus of that school, it just strengthens that answer in a way that's just incredible, because that means you have a direct experience of the school's culture, how the school developed that professional as a leader, and how if you look up to that person as a leader, it just, solidifies the reason why you want to be a part of that, because that's the type of leader you're seeking to become, right? So I'd say, if possible, that's only if possible, within your own personal reach, like your connections, if there's someone that you've worked under on that school, that's probably one of the better schools to really just put more effort into applying to and really understanding. Yeah, keep it close.
Just because you kind of have an advantage.
It does. It's a great advantage to have if you have professional experience with the alumnus. If it's even better if you had 2, and sure, if it's a different MBA, that's fine too, because you kind of get a sense of how the MBA change, it differentiates them from other leaders who don't have MBAs. And 9 times out of 10, those differences are clear as night and day. I mean, I've worked with MBA alumni leaders, as well as leaders who haven't had an MBA program in their experience. It's just very different. It's clear to me that like they have much better control over team management, people management, time management, prioritization. It's just problem solving abilities. The approaches that they take on how to bring the collaboration together. It's just, it's admirable, very admirable.
Very cool. So it makes a lot of sense that if you worked for someone who went to an MBA program, that's a really good contact to have, and maybe even a program to consider. What do you think about like your parents or something like that, right? Like, or some family member? Do you feel like that's, because at the end of the day, part of what you're doing is you're counting on a letter of recommendation from this person. And if it's your boss, that's great, because they can talk about how you work and why you're a special, basically worker, for lack of a better word. A special person in the capitalist machine. And on the other hand, your family members are kind of not really a trusted resource for like a letter of recommendation, right? So what would you like if your parents went to an MBA program or a family member, and it's not like, for lack of like, a pure legacy situation where there might be a building on campus named after them or something. They're just like a normal person and they don't really donate an extraordinary amount. Is that something where you should maybe prioritize that school, or why or why not?
Okay, yeah, great question. For recommendation letters, no, definitely not from parents. It's better to have just the direct work, have it from a direct manager, somebody you've worked directly with that's not a family member. So recommendation letters, big no-no with parents. But it's okay to apply to the schools that they're alma maters, right? I don't even know if I pronounce it. The alma maters. Yeah, it's great in the sense that sure, it's great because here's the thing. Children grow up under the value systems that their parents created for them. And if they've gone to the school and you're applying to the MBA that they've gone to, that value system that you've grown up with automatically puts you aligned with the ethos of that school, directly or indirectly. But because you already have that connection, it's a great way to kind of be able to say, but you don't want to say it kind of like, okay, so in the interview portion, you don't want to make it sound like I'm doing this because my parents did it. No, I'm doing this because the values instilled in me have come from the experiences that they had at the school. And for me, I feel that that's exactly what I want to go to, what I want to have in my experience as well. But it's totally okay too if you're applying for a different school. And in your application, you state that, okay, so my parents graduated from Harvard, but I'm applying to Stanford. And if they bring that question up, it's fine too, because I'm not my parents, right? I know that they have that sort of mindset. I'm going a different path, and the schools will respect you for that, as long as you're able to back it up with not only the career choices that you've made, but the career choices you're going to have in the future, right? So again, it comes back to the individual more than even legacy or previous let's say family structures. I had a student this round one right now who he's actually in a family business, family owned company. It's actually I think they did 100-year-old company. His great grandfather built it. His parents have an MBA, and he's going for an MBA. That was a tough one. But different school, it's like, no, I'm focusing on mine. I think it's different. I mean, and the reasons that you have to give for that specific school is to show why not? Why didn't, because they'll ask you, why didn't you follow in your parents' footsteps? And if you don't have a strong answer for that, in the back of their head, in the back of their mind, it might be like, oh, maybe the candidate is not as good, right? He didn't make it into it. And it's up to the candidate to be able to show that, no, that's not it at all. I just have different values, and I think the world has changed, and I'm looking for a school that's it's been able to innovate faster, who's been able to integrate diversity better into the campus and whatnot. So again, it's very specific, case by case. I don't know if that answered your question. I know I kind of went off in a tangent.
No, I thought that was a good answer. Yeah, well, very cool. Anything else before we wrap up today on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say I'd probably just close by saying it's a serious commitment, to pursue an MBA program. Shouldn't be taken lightly. Just like any 2-year relationship or any relationship that you want to build and create. It's 2 years at the school, but it's a lifelong commitment to future endeavors within the communities that you built from that program. So if you do decide to pursue an MBA, I mean, be sure you're committed to it and put in the work, because it only gets harder. A lot of students have told me like, oh my goodness, this year has been just so hard with applications and studying. And then I always tell them, yeah, it's going to get worse, because now you're going to get into the school and you'll see all of all of the offerings they have and just so much to do. And it's just a precursor to what's really coming.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much. This has been GRE Snacks, hosted by Tyler from Achievable with Mateo Chang. And Achievable has a great online GRE course. You can try it for free by going to achievable.me, and the code podcast gets you 10% off at checkout.